Hello and welcome back to another episode. I am so excited to talk about marketing today. And this is going to kick off a series all on how to market your travel business. We're going to go through different things you need to know about getting your marketing set up, get it going. Of course, if you want that ability to come ask questions and really dive in, then you want to come join us over at the Travel Advisors Success Studio. I'll link it up. But before we get going into this whole series, the one thing I really want to talk about is who are you marketing for? And so when we have these conversations, when we get talking about what should your marketing be, who should it be for, and all those sorts of things, obviously it's understanding your ideal client. And that's something I know we've talked about in past episodes. It's definitely something we talk about in the Travel Advisor Success Studio. It's this thing everybody talks about endlessly. So I'm going to take it from a slightly different perspective. And instead, I want to talk about who it is you're having conversations with. Who are you having a conversation with? Are you having a conversation with many, or are you having a conversation with one? See, I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake, is that they try to have a conversation with the many. And the problem with having a conversation with the many is that we lose that intimacy of the conversation with the one. And when we're having a conversation with the many, do you know what happens then? And we all start doing this and we all start fading away. We all start playing on our cell phones and we forget that we're even supposed to be a part of this conversation. And so when you are creating your content, be it videos, be it a single image with a caption, whatever it is, talk to one person. One, it's going to allow you to tell it more from a story perspective, but also two, it's going to allow you to connect deeper. Why? Because you're not going into your content going, hey, everybody, how's everybody doing? I am loving this. So, everybody that's not a conversation. Instead, just like we do on the podcast, where I'm talking directly to you, I'm talking to one person. Is there a possibility thousands of people will download this episode? Absolutely. But my focus is on you because you're the only person listening to me right now. And I want to make sure that you and I are able to have this deep conversation where it's getting through and connecting with you. I don't care about all of the masses of everybody else that may possibly listen. The reality is right now, you're the one that's listening. And so I want to create this content for travel advisors who are just like you. Now, I could get on here and I could say, so for all of the travel advisors that are listening right now, I want you all to, that's not going to have the same conversation. That's not going to have the same connection, if you will, as when you and I are just having a conversation. Because when I'm recording this, I'm looking into a camera, I'm speaking into a microphone, and if I happen to glance down, the only person I see, oh yeah, that's me. And I want to make sure that you and I are having a conversation. I'm not talking to thousands of travel advisors in this moment. I'm talking to just one. So one of the easiest ways when you're getting to this point of, well, how do I write for that? How do I come up with content? I want you to think of the person that in your mind would be the very best person to hear the message you're sending out right now. So let's say you want to sell a river cruise. Possibly, depending on your niche, depending on your who's, depending on your ideal client, et cetera, possibly not every client is going to be perfect for a river cruise. And so when we start to try to talk to the masses and try to talk to everybody around us, trying to pick out that person, we get a really watered down message, or we get a really chaotic and confusing message. So instead, what I want you to do is think of your favorite river cruise client. Or if you don't yet have a river cruise client, but you want to, I want you to think through everybody in your personal life. Who do you think would love a river cruise? Who do you think would have the absolute best time on a river cruise? Then what I want you to do is, what's preventing them from booking? What's preventing them from saying yes? What's preventing them from going, oh, yeah, I want that? And then I want you to speak to just that person. And you can use things like, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, I don't have time for that. Or you're probably thinking, isn't that just for old people? Whatever it is that you think that that very specific person you're talking to might be thinking. And then I want you to create a piece of content around that. See, when you do that, one, you are directly speaking to somebody, which, FYI, if that person you want to have book with you is following you and they see that, you might have just like hit the nail on the head, as they say. But you also will discover that when you talk to one person, you actually are talking to many, because what this one person is struggling with what this one person is saying no to, with what this one person is objecting to, it is possible that you will tap into the emotion that other people within your audience are feeling the exact same way. So when you speak to that one person, you actually get an opportunity to speak to the masses. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be heading into a whole series of marketing tips and strategies and other such to be able to help you to build out your marketing. But first and foremost is to really figure out what you want to sell, who you want to sell it to. And the who is not just your ideal client, but who specifically. Do you have somebody in mind? When I'm creating my programs, for example, so we're going to be launching our Cold to Curious program right away, which is a on-demand version of our lead magnet workshop that we had. And so when I'm creating Cold to Curious, I'm listening to what the travel advisors that came through the live version of the workshop had to say, but also two, I'm looking at the comments and the conversations that are taking place in different Facebook groups where travel advisors are struggling with how to get the right clients, how to attract clients, how to do this, that, the other. And then from that, I'm distilling down a couple of key phrases. And yes, those phrases are appearing over and over again. As people come into our free Facebook group, they put in what's their biggest obstacle. So that gets factored in. But then I will see either through my coaching or through Facebook groups or whatever it is, I will pick out one or two people that in particular, I know this program can solve a problem for. So as I'm in this process right now where I'm starting to put together my sales page and I'm starting to put together some of the marketing and I'm starting to put together different elements of which the podcast will be part of it, I am getting a mental image of 2 to 3 advisors in particular that I'm going to create all the marketing for. I'm going to create the marketing for those 2 or 3 advisors. Now, I'm only going to talk to one of them at a time, but I'm going to create that marketing for those 2 or 3 advisors because I see them as a representation for a bigger segment of the industry. And rather than calling out everybody, I'm going to identify the biggest struggles, the biggest obstacles, and the biggest objections that those advisors have. And more importantly, the biggest fears. See, one of the things that I come up against, now, obviously, I'm in a business to business sense versus you're in a business to consumer sense. So it will need to be tweaked. Is I have a lot of advisors that say, now's not the right time. I don't have a big enough list. I don't have a big enough this. I don't have a big enough that. Blah, 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 blah. Put in whatever you want to say. But the reality is, what you going to do about it? Like, if you can't show up on social media till you have a bigger following, I'm sorry, that system's broken. Not social media, but your thinking. See, you have to have social media following or like social media platform, social media content for people to want to follow. People don't want to follow something that doesn't exist. People won't pay attention to something that doesn't exist. The same is true for you. If you are wanting to have people buy from you, they're not going to buy from you, one, if they can't see you, but two, if there's nothing there that establishes you as the authority, and three, has built a connection. So that's where we come back around to just simply changing out everybody, y'all, all of those sorts of things to you, your family, your vacation. It's a simple shift of the language, but once you start talking specifically, you're able to have a bigger conversation with more people, even though it was that one. It's that example I've given all the times in the past. You can go into a cocktail party and you can stand in the middle of a room and start shouting out to everybody, and everybody's just going to go, they're either not going to hear you at all, or they're all going to look away and go, the crazy person's talking again. But if you get into a cocktail party and you strike up a conversation with one person and you guys are having such a good conversation, there's laughter, there's the head being thrown back, there's all sorts of excitement and energy, people are just going to congregate. I know I've used this example before, but it's my absolute favorite example because I was talking about that at a conference in Toronto, and I was talking with one person. And then there was 2 people there, and then there was 3. So now we're a group of 4. We're having a great conversation. And then I had this other group come up, and I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 people in that party. And they came up to say that I was wrong. And I let them say their piece, which great. Everybody's allowed to have a perspective. But then I said to them, what drew you into the conversation? Well, we overheard you and we had an opinion. I'm like, great. But I actually wasn't talking to you. They're like, yeah. I said, because I was having a one-to-one conversation with this person, which grew to this one, which has now brought you in. And now because you're here, now suddenly we are up to like a dozen people. And they're like, yeah. I said, but I wasn't talking to the mass of the room. I started off by having a conversation with one person. It took a moment. And they looked at me and said, well played. And I said, I wasn't playing anything. This is just how human nature is. Because when you build up that connection, I'm sorry, we are in a world where people are craving to connect with people. People are craving to have somebody that sees them and hears them. And so that there is something that we can belong to, belong with. And so when you create that in your marketing, it goes beyond pretty pictures and it goes beyond perfection. I love the video. I sent it to my husband and we both laughed because, it's funny because it's true. But it was this video and it looks like a husband and a wife sitting at the airport. They're all calm. They're good. And the caption on it says, or I think it was like one of those point of view. No one will ever know we almost got divorced 5 times on the way to the airport or getting ready to go to the airport. Oh my goodness. It was so true because that stress, that anxiety, that OMG that leads into the process just before you actually manage to make it on the airplane is something a lot of people can connect with. Now, if that's not something you connect with at all, then don't use that because nobody can connect with you if it's not authentic. But for me, that chaos, that dysregulation, I can't believe that you did not do this. My husband and I took the kids to the US a number of years ago. And we were driving down to my sister's cabin in Montana. And we made it as far as Calgary. We were at the Cross Iron Mills Mall. And I opened my wallet to do something. And I saw my passport. And then I stopped. And I looked at my kids and I'm like, did your dad mention anything about your passports? They're like, no. And my husband had to go, I don't remember what he had done. He had gone to go get something. So he'd left us at the mall. I was doing a quick stop. Anyhow, The emotions that I had in that moment, I'm like, I'm not texting him. I'm not sending him a message. We're just gonna get in the car. So I got back in the car and I said to my husband, I said, uh, you got everything for the kids, right? He's like, I said I would. And I said, like everything. He's like, yes. I'm like, great. So where are the passports? Well, that's not my job. That's your job. And I'm like, no, actually, I have my passport. Do you have the passports for the kids or yourself? And so the chaos that ensued after that, we ended up deciding we were going to try it. This was a number of years ago when it was a little easier. And fortunately, because I was in travel, I had photocopies of everybody's passports on my phone, and we had been through that same border crossing every year for the last however many. So fortunately, they let us through. But as we were driving, trying to figure out what to do we send somebody for our passport? Like, what do we do? We had decided we were going to try it. We had called the border and they're like, it's up to the individual officer. And my husband's like, well, what do we do if we don't make it through? I said, well, frankly, I'm going to call my sister to come pick me up and you guys can do whatever you want. Um, but it's in those moments that this becomes something that your clients can connect with. And it's those stories that you can tell about your experience. And you're going to tell it like you're talking to a friend. Maybe not a close friend because my language was probably a lot different when I was telling a friend of mine about this story, but you get where I'm headed with that. But the thing is, though, is that we want to make sure that we're creating ways for our clients to see their own story within ours. We're wanting to create ways in which your clients can feel that energy, that compatibility, and that lack of judgment. A lot of people don't buy because they feel judged. Now, if you put out a story like that on social media, are you going to get judged? Good possibility. Is that going to affect the outcome? Nope. Are some people going to watch it and think it's absolutely hilarious and oh my goodness, that happened to me, that happened to my sister, that happened to my brother, that happened to my cousin, it happened to my neighbor, it happened to whomever? Yes. But when you talk about it, it's also this is why I remind clients to make sure they've done that. Have you ever forgotten this? Have you ever done like you want to tell stories that allow people to connect with you? Because again, you're talking to one person at a time. Okay. Over the next couple of weeks, we've got some great marketing stories coming for you. We've got some tips and tricks and other such, and I can't wait. But until next time, happy selling.